The Boston Memorial Hospital stood as a gleaming monument to modern healthcare, its pristine marble lobby and state-of-the-art facilities projecting an image of medical excellence and compassion. But beneath the polished surface lurked a festering corruption that threatened the very patients it claimed to serve, and one woman was about to bring it all crashing down. Karoline Leavitt stepped through the hospital's revolving doors, her navy suit impeccably pressed, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight, professional bun. As White House press secretary at just 27 years old, she'd already weathered more political storms than most veteran Washington insiders. Today was supposed to be routine. Prepare for President Trump's healthcare policy announcement, manage the press, control the narrative. Simple. She took a deep breath, her Catholic faith offering a moment of calm before entering the fray. That tranquility shattered the moment she encountered Dr. Jonathan Kessler, the hospital's chief of staff. "Leavitt," Kessler said, his voice dripping with contempt despite his practiced smile. "Spokesperson for an administration that loves wrecking healthcare, right?" Karoline maintained her composure, meeting his gaze directly. "I'm here to ensure the truth, doctor. That's what the public needs." Kessler's smile tightened. "The truth? You and Trump wouldn't know how to spell it." He turned abruptly, white coat fluttering as he walked away. "If you've ever witnessed someone hiding something behind a mask of moral superiority, you'll recognize what happened next." Drop a comment below describing a time when you caught someone in their own hypocrisy. Karoline had faced hostility before. It came with representing Trump's administration, but something about Kessler's arrogance triggered her instincts. As she checked the official White House email account on her phone, an anonymous message appeared that would change everything. Kessler embezzled charity funds. Check the management office's financial records. The sender claimed to be a hospital employee too frightened of Kessler's influence to reveal their identity. Karoline's heartbeat quickened. As press secretary, her job was managing Trump's media presence, not investigating hospital finances. But the possibility of exposing hypocrisy, a liberal doctor who championed universal health care while potentially stealing from the sick, was too significant to ignore. As she moved through the patient areas, the physical contrast was striking. The VIP section featured gleaming floors, modern screens, and attentive staff. Just around a corner, the area for uninsured patients told a different story. Dim lights, stained walls, outdated equipment wheezing like they might fail at any moment. An elderly woman sat on a plastic chair, her exhausted eyes meeting Karoline's for a brief moment of connection. If this discrepancy between public image and hidden reality infuriates you as much as it did Karoline, hit subscribe now. Our channel exposes these hypocrisies wherever they hide. "Miss Leavitt?" A young nurse with blonde hair tied back approached, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I'm Sarah. Been here 3 years. I have to tell you something." Karoline followed her to a quiet corner, away from curious eyes. "Kessler controls everything," Sarah whispered, hands trembling. "The charity fund for poor patients. It doesn't reach them. I've seen him order money moved elsewhere. Anyone who questions gets threatened with firing." The confirmation of her suspicions sent a surge of righteous anger through Karoline. She gently squeezed Sarah's hand. "You're very brave. I'll find proof. Stay safe, okay?" As Sarah hurried back to work, Karoline's mind was already mapping out her next moves. This wasn't just about scoring political points anymore. Real patients were suffering, while charity money disappeared. She moved through the administrative area, heart pounding when she noticed a door ajar, dim light spilling from within. On a shelf sat a thick folder labeled Charity Fund, Internal. Her instincts screamed that this was the evidence she needed. Inside, a handwritten note stopped her cold. Transfer $500,000 to Reserve Fund JKK. Kessler's scrolled signature was unmistakable. She quickly photographed each page, documenting the paper trail of diverted funds. "Miss Leavitt, what are you doing here?" Kessler's cold voice cut through the room. He stood at the door, white coat pristine, eyes sharp as surgical blades. Karoline slipped her phone into her pocket, face a mask of professional calm. "Checking the press conference venue, doctor. Making sure nothing embarrasses the president." Kessler stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "You should know your limits. Too much curiosity will cost you." "I'm doing my job, Kessler," Karoline replied, unflinching. "Bringing the truth to light." If you appreciate seeing fearless confrontations with those who abuse power, make sure you're subscribed to Cal Morgan. We bring you the truth that mainstream media tries to bury. Back in the main lobby, Karoline received an internal White House message. Kessler was demanding she face the press immediately on healthcare policy. The trap was obvious. He wanted to fluster her before Trump's broadcast, catch her unprepared, and make her look incompetent. The small meeting room was packed with reporters, cameras trained on her like weapons. A journalist fired the first question. "Ms. Leavitt, Trump's cutting healthcare budgets. How dare you talk about patient care?" Karoline smiled, her voice like steel. "No, we're auditing to ensure funds reach the right people, not pocketed by someone." She emphasized the last word, glancing directly at Kessler, who lurked in the corner. A brief silence fell over the room. As she left, Kessler blocked her path, voice low with fury. "Think you're clever, huh? You don't know who you're messing with." Karoline tilted her head, meeting his glare with a cold smile. "I know exactly who you are, Kessler, and I'm not scared." The confrontation was escalating, but Karoline wasn't backing down. As White House press secretary at 27, she'd been underestimated her entire career. Critics called her too young, too ambitious, too loyal to Trump. What they failed to understand was that those supposed weaknesses were her greatest strengths. She spotted the administrative worker who had glanced at her earlier, possibly the anonymous email sender, and made a mental note to approach them later. For now, she needed to keep gathering evidence. Sarah found her again in a quiet moment. "Miss Leavitt, I overheard Kessler tell a manager you're causing trouble. He's planning something before the event." "Thanks for the heads up," Karoline assured her. "He can try, but I don't break easily." Sarah pressed a folded paper into Karoline's hand. "I got this from the finance office. It's about the money." Karoline unfolded it, revealing a printed receipt. "Transfer $200,000, Auxiliary Reserve Fund, J. Kessler." Another piece of the puzzle. "Keep this quiet," she instructed Sarah. "I'll handle the rest." As Sarah slipped away, Kessler's voice cut through the air behind Karoline. "Miss Leavitt, busy as ever." She turned, maintaining her calm smile. "Just doing my job, Doctor. Ensuring the president's event goes smoothly." Kessler stepped uncomfortably close. "You don't belong here. A young girl playing politics in my hospital. You'll regret it." "Your hospital?" Karoline tilted her head. "Or your charity fund?" Kessler froze momentarily, just long enough for Karoline to know she'd struck a nerve. He stalked off, but the air was thick with tension. The storm was brewing. If watching the powerful squirm when confronted with their own corruption satisfies your sense of justice, give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who appreciates hard truth. Minutes later, a stone-faced hospital staffer approached. "Miss Leavitt, Dr. Kessler invites you to an internal meeting now about the event." Karoline recognized the bigger trap. Kessler didn't just want her flustered. He wanted her crushed before Trump spoke. "Lead the way," she said with a measured smile. The meeting room was packed, not just with hospital staff, but local reporters as well. Clearly Kessler's doing. He stood at the head of the table, a fake smile plastered across his face. "Miss Leavitt, thanks for joining us. We'd love to discuss how Trump's administration plans to audit healthcare funds, as you put it. Care to clarify?" The room felt stifling, all eyes on her, waiting for a misstep. But Karoline stood tall, her voice ringing clear. "Gladly, doctor. But first, can you explain why the hospital's charity fund is short while poor patients go uncared for?" A dead silence fell over the room. Kessler's knuckles whitened as he gripped the table's edge. "You're slandering me," he snapped. But Karoline didn't stop. "Slander? I have proof, Kessler. Documents, signatures, transfers. Want me to share now?" She didn't pull out her phone. Not yet. But her words cut like a blade. Reporters murmured as cameras rolled. Kessler tried to steady himself, voice trembling. "You've got nothing. This is Trump's dirty politics." "If it's dirty, why are you scared?" A manager jumped up, trying to defuse the situation. "Let's focus on the event." But no one was listening. Staff whispered, eyes darting between Kessler and Karoline as she walked out, feeling like she'd lit an unstoppable fire. Kessler followed, cornering her in a corridor, his voice low with rage. "You just made a big mistake, Leavitt. I'll make sure you never set foot here again." Karoline stared him down. "Try it, Kessler, but the truth doesn't bury easy." She turned away, heart pounding but steps firm. In the main lobby, the media team was finalizing preparations, camera flashes, creating a chaotic dance of light. A text from a White House colleague warned her, "Be careful. Kessler's tied to liberal media. He'll hit back." Karoline clenched her fist. She hadn't come to start a war, but Kessler had chosen this path, and she wouldn't stop until the truth was revealed. I know many of you have witnessed corruption hiding behind a facade of virtue. Comment below if you believe we need more people willing to stand against powerful interests, regardless of political affiliation. Later that evening, Karoline returned to her hotel room, the day's confrontation still burning in her mind. Boston city lights flickered outside the window as she considered her next move. She had challenged Kessler before staff and press, throwing suspicion on the embezzled charity funds. The $500,000 in documents, plus $200,000 from Sarah's receipt, were damning, but she needed more to make the case airtight. As she entered the hotel suite, her husband Nicholas Riccio stood waiting, his gray suit jacket off, concern evident in his eyes. At 59, he was Karoline's steadfast supporter, despite the scrutiny their 32-year age gap often attracted. "Karoline," he said, pulling her into his arms. "You okay? You look like you walked out of a war zone." She smiled wearily, sinking onto the sofa. "Close enough, Nick. Kessler's not just a liberal doctor in a moral cloak. He's hiding hundreds of thousands from the charity fund." Riccio frowned, sitting beside her as she showed him the document photos and receipt. Transfers, signatures, all in Kessler's name. "But he's got ties to liberal media," Karoline continued. "If I go public now, they'll twist it, call me a political attacker." Riccio squeezed her hand. "He doesn't know who you are, Karoline. You faced down media mobs in Trump's campaign. But this time, be careful. Kessler could be dangerous." Karoline looked at him, drawing strength from the husband who had always supported her. "Dangerous or not, I can't let him go on. Poor patients are paying for his scam." Riccio nodded but lowered his voice. "I know you don't back down, but I've got info too." He pulled out his phone, opening an email from a business partner. "The healthcare group owning the hospital. I've got a small stake in it. If Kessler's really embezzling, it's not just the hospital's name at stake. It's mine, too." The revelation gave Karoline pause. She stood, crossing to the window overlooking the city. "Then I've got more reason to act, Nick. Not just for the truth, but for us." She turned back, eyes resolute. "But I need airtight proof before going public. Sarah, the nurse, is helping me. She's risking a lot." Riccio rose, his expression now determined. "If you need me to do anything, reach out to shareholders, apply pressure. Just say it. I won't let you fight alone." Just then, Karoline's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop, Leavitt. You don't know what you're up against." She showed Riccio, her heart racing. "Kessler," she whispered, "or someone working for him." Riccio gripped her hand tighter. "They're scared, Karoline. That means you're on the right track." If you believe in standing firm when threats come, give this video a thumbs up right now. At Cal Morgan, we celebrate those who refuse to be silenced. The next morning, while darkness still blanketed Boston, Karoline arrived at the hospital's east parking lot. The air bit cold as she stood in the shadows, scanning for surveillance. Sarah appeared, hood up, clutching a thin envelope. "Miss Leavitt," Sarah whispered, voice trembling. "I got this from the finance office safe. Bank statements showing Kessler moved another $300,000 to an offshore account. If he finds out I took it..." Karoline put a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "You're braver than you know. I'll make sure no one hurts you." Sarah handed over the envelope, eyes glinting with hope. "Do it for the patients, Miss Leavitt." Then she hurried off, disappearing behind the cars. Karoline opened the envelope, scanning the statements. $300,000 transferred to an offshore account, with a note reading, quote, "Kessler Private Project." She tucked the papers away, feeling like she was holding a loaded weapon. She backed up the statements to her phone, sending them via encrypted channel to a White House colleague with instructions to verify immediately. If Kessler discovered Sarah's role, they'd both be in danger. The stakes had just skyrocketed. Back inside the hospital, Karoline blended into the crowd, preparing for Trump's event. The main lobby glowed with lights, microphones buzzing as the media team tested sound. She noticed a tall security guard lingering near the entrance, likely Kessler's man. She memorized his face, keeping her distance. As she reached the administrative area to check the podium, hushed voices from an office stopped her. Kessler's tense tone carried through the door. "She can't ruin the event. Find a way to stop her, got it?" Karoline pressed against the door, recording on her phone. Another voice replied, "Documents are missing. Could be someone in finance." Kessler cursed. "Find them, now." Karoline stopped recording, slipping away before being spotted. The audio wasn't direct evidence of embezzlement, but it showed Kessler's panic, exactly what she needed. As she returned to the lobby, a hospital staffer blocked her path. "Miss Leavitt, Dr. Kessler wants you to review the press conference script. He says there's an issue." Karoline smiled coldly, seeing through the ruse. "Tell him the script's perfect. I don't like wasting time." The staffer hesitated, then left. Kessler was trying to rattle her, but she remained one step ahead. She checked her earpiece, calling the media team. "How's security? Double-check the podium area." The team leader replied vaguely, "Saw a stranger nearby, maybe press, but be careful." Karoline nodded, sensing the escalating threat. Her phone buzzed with another anonymous text. "Stop, Leavitt, or you'll regret it." She ignored it, instead texting Riccio, "Kessler's pushing harder. Be ready if I need you to act." Riccio responded immediately, "Just say when. I'm watching." His support bolstered her resolve as she returned to the lobby. A reporter, one she recognized as being cozy with Kessler, approached. "Miss Leavitt, word is you're stirring trouble at the hospital. True you're accusing Kessler?" Karoline maintained her professional smile, eyes sharp. "Accusing? I'm asking questions. If Kessler's clean, why is he worried?" The reporter fell silent, caught off guard by her directness. Kessler was clearly spreading rumors, trying to paint her as a troublemaker before Trump's event. It was a classic technique we've seen in American politics again and again, attempting to discredit the messenger when you fear the message. If you're tired of seeing truth-tellers attacked while corruption goes unchallenged, subscribe now for more stories that cut through the noise. As final preparations for the president's arrival continued, Karoline noticed the security guard she'd spotted earlier lurking near the podium, holding a small box. She signaled the media team to watch, then approached him directly. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice calm but firm. The man startled, muttering something about checking equipment before beating a hasty retreat. Karoline didn't believe him for a second. Kessler was pulling out all stops to undermine her. The hospital's main lobby pulsed with camera flashes as Trump's event approached. Karoline stood near the podium, her earpiece alive with the media team confirming positions. She held hard evidence against Kessler. $300,000 in offshore transfers, his panicked audio recording, plus the earlier $500,000 and $200,000 in embezzled charity funds. But Kessler had spent the past hours spreading rumors, planting devices, and sending threats. The crowd of donors, officials, and press packed the lobby, the air electric with anticipation. Riccio watched from a corner, his steady gaze communicating support. She nodded slightly, drawing strength from his presence. Kessler stood meters away, his eyes cold and calculating as he whispered to a group of liberal reporters, no doubt spreading more rumors to discredit her. A text from Sarah appeared. "Kessler suspects me. They're searching the finance office. You have to act fast." Karoline replied instantly, "Thanks, Sarah. Stay safe. I'll handle it." The pressure weighed heavily on her shoulders, not just for the truth, but for people like Sarah who had risked everything. She texted a White House colleague, "Prepare to release the statements. Upload the video to the system now." The hospital's giant screen, intended for Trump's policy presentation, would become her weapon of justice. As President Trump entered the lobby, the crowd erupted in applause. Karoline signaled the media team standing by the podium. Trump spoke briefly, emphasizing healthcare fund audits to ensure money reached those who needed it most. When he finished, Karoline stepped up to the microphone, her voice ringing clear. "Thank you, Mr. President. Now I'll take questions from the press and clarify some issues about healthcare funds right here at this hospital." The crowd fell silent, sensing the tension. Kessler, standing among the donors, visibly paled. A reporter, clearly prepped by him, jumped in with the first question. "Miss Leavitt, you're accusing Dr. Kessler of embezzlement. Got proof, or is this just politics?" Karoline smiled, her gaze unwavering. "Proof? I'll show you." She signaled the tech team, and the massive screen behind her lit up. A video played. Kessler's recorded voice filled the room, panicked and incriminating. Leavitt thinks she can dig into my finances. She'll never find anything. Find who took the documents now. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karoline continued, her voice steady and authoritative. And here are the bank statements, verified by the White House team. The screen displayed clear text. Transfer, $300,000 offshore account, J. Kessler. She paused, letting the truth sink in. Plus another $500,000 and $200,000 in charity funds meant for poor patients. Gone. Who's behind it? Dr. Kessler. The lobby exploded in outrage. Donors shook their heads in disgust. Reporters frantically captured the moment. Kessler stormed toward the podium, face crimson with rage. It's fabricated, he shouted into the microphone. She's slandering me for Trump. But the crowd wasn't listening. A major donor stood, voice shaking with anger. If this is true, we're pulling funding, now. Karoline locked eyes with Kessler, her gaze unflinching. If it's fake, why are you scared, doctor? She turned to the media team, issuing a clear command. Send all documents to the press. Release everything. Kessler stumbled backward, hands trembling, eyes wild with panic. He tried to justify himself, but boos drowned out his words as cameras captured his downfall. From the corner, Riccio acted swiftly. He pulled out his phone, calling a partner in the healthcare group, his voice firm and decisive. Pull our investment from the hospital. Kessler's gone too far. Do it now. The call lasted less than a minute, but Karoline knew he triggered a domino effect. Other shareholders watching the event via livestream would follow suit. A text message confirmed, markets reacting, hospital down 20% in 7 minutes. The financial and reputational crisis had begun, exactly as Karoline had predicted. Reporters swarmed Kessler, firing questions he couldn't answer. When he tried to shove a journalist and flee, security blocked his path. Karoline remained at the podium, watching as justice unfolded. She'd won this battle, but she knew the cost. Liberal media would label her a healthcare politicizer, attack her motives, question her methods. She glanced at Riccio, finding his eyes beaming with pride across the chaotic room. You did it, he mouthed silently. She returned to the microphone, her voice calm amidst the storm. The truth isn't up for debate. Patients deserve care, not to be victims of greed. If you believe in accountability for those who betray the public trust, no matter their political affiliation, hit the like button and subscribe right now. At Cal Morgan, we're committed to exposing corruption wherever it hides. In the days that followed, Karoline weathered the media storm she'd anticipated. Half the press attacked her for politicizing healthcare, while the other half praised her courage in exposing corruption. But her focus remained on protecting Sarah, the whistleblower nurse who had risked everything for the truth. The hospital underwent seismic changes. Kessler was suspended, pending a full investigation. Major donors withdrew their funding, and the stock price continued its freefall. The board of directors held emergency meetings as the financial impact of Kessler's exposure rippled through the healthcare system. Riccio's decisive action to pull his investment had indeed created a domino effect. Other shareholders followed suit, demanding accountability and transparency. The hospital that had once been Kessler's kingdom was crumbling under the weight of his corruption. A month later, Karoline stood in her White House office, reviewing press clippings about the Boston hospital's transformation. The new board had implemented weekly financial reports, available to the public. The poor patients area, once neglected and understaffed, now featured modern equipment and adequate staffing. The elderly woman Karoline had noticed on her first visit, the one whose tired eyes had touched her heart, would now receive proper care. Sarah had kept her job, protected by the new administration's whistleblower policies. Her text that morning had been simple but powerful. Thank you for everything, Miss Leavitt. The patients are getting what they deserve now. Despite the liberal media's relentless attacks on her methods, Karoline found validation in these tangible improvements. She had exposed corruption and, in doing so, improved care for the most vulnerable patients. The cost to her reputation seemed a small price to pay. As she prepared for the day's press briefing, she reflected on the choice she'd made in Boston. Had she gone too far? As press secretary, her job was managing media, not toppling a liberal doctor like Kessler. Yet the evidence had been undeniable, the injustice too flagrant to ignore. Riccio had supported her decision without reservation. You did right, Karoline, he'd assured her. You gave patients hope. but he also understood her nature. "I know you, Karoline. You won't stop questioning yourself." He was right. She always questioned, always examined her motives, her methods. Truth was her guiding light, but it burned those who carried it. As she gathered her notes for the day's briefing, her phone lit up with a notification. An email from a major healthcare donor group. "Ms. Leavitt, we'd like to invite you to speak at a healthcare conference about transparency in charitable funds." The invitation represented a new door opening, an opportunity to advocate for systemic change beyond one corrupt hospital administrator. Karoline stood tall, adjusted her earpiece, and stepped toward the press room. In her mind, a quiet certainty had settled. Truth is worth fighting for, and I won. If this story of courage against corruption inspired you, make sure you're subscribed to Cal Morgan. We bring you the confrontations that matter, the battles for truth that shape America's future. Hit subscribe now, and join us in the fight for transparency in every corner of our society. The story of Karoline Leavitt exposing Dr. Jonathan Kessler's corruption at Boston Memorial Hospital reflects the multifaceted nature of modern American life, the political polarization, the media's role in shaping narratives, and the power of individuals to fight for truth in a landscape where financial scandals and abuses of power regularly make headlines. Karoline's journey from receiving an anonymous email, gathering evidence of $1 million in embezzled charity funds, to facing public humiliation and ultimately revealing the truth demonstrates that systems can be changed, but always at a cost. Nicholas Riccio, with his unwavering support and strategic move to pull investment funds, highlights the importance of partnership in fighting major battles. Sarah, the whistleblower nurse, reminds us that even the smallest voices can make a difference if they dare to speak up. The media's role in the story, with some outlets praising Karoline's courage while others attacked her motives, mirrors America's polarized reality, where even clear evidence of wrongdoing becomes filtered through political lenses. For those watching this channel, the lessons are clear. Stand for what's right, but prepare for pressure and fallout. Like Karoline, lean on evidence and resolve, plus allies who believe in your cause. Like Sarah, don't think you're too powerless to matter. One act of courage can spark meaningful change. Be wary of the media landscape, where truth can easily be twisted to serve agendas. Hold tight to facts, but choose your moment and method wisely to ensure your message isn't drowned in partisan debate. And finally, as Karoline reflected in the White House, ask yourself what's truly worth fighting for. Truth carries a cost, but remaining silent in the face of corruption exacts an even greater toll, not just on you, but on everyone affected by the systems you could have helped change. Subscribe to Cal Morgan for more stories of truth seekers who refuse to back down when confronted with corruption and lies. Your subscription helps us continue bringing you the confrontations that matter, the moments when truth breaks through and changes everything. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video, where we'll dive deep into another battle for America's soul.